So before I get to my next guest, I want to tell you how I discovered he was somebody that I could get to. 2 months ago, I was in town for an event here at the station, and my family watches We Got Nothing News, referred to as WGN in the morning. It drives me nuts because I don't like it because it's very politically slanted. And they were talking about fear and the fear to control and the speculation of what policies would do to the stock market. And a financial advisor was introduced, and I recognized him. He looked a little older than I remember, but I recognized him. And he said, don't get nervous. Don't get nervous. You don't know what you don't know. And if you're in the stock market, don't panic. So then this week, in fact, a day ago, this came out.
How much we've been collecting in revenues. And I did this in part because Wilfred's here and he can talk about the UK trade deal. But just this is the monthly numbers. And they have gone up a lot. June is actually set for another big increase of $27 billion. That is money coming into U.S. coffers from tariffs. We are collecting a lot of revenue. So far, guys, $121 billion has flowed into the U.S. government since the start of the fiscal year. It's still a tiny portion of the overall revenues that the U.S. government gets, but it's increasingly a lot.
And that's on Bloomberg. That's not We Got Nothing News. That's on Bloomberg. And it turns out that my next guest was right then, and he's often right now. He is a VP with Ameriprise Financial. He also is a professor at Purdue University, teaching personal finance and economics to young people so they don't end up broke and in the curb like so many of the people we grew up with, but not this guy. He's a friend of mine. Mike Ruggiero, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? The only thing I took from all of that was that I look a little older, but if I'm not mistaken, we're the same age, aren't we?
I know, but I do it much better than you. However...
Well, that's because you got the cigars and I just can't smoke them anymore.
However, you are teaching young people the importance of looking out for themselves. And you know, it's fascinating because I like to reflect on when we grew up. I think it was a better time all the way around. But one thing is for certain. If you go back to the dollar value, and my favorite year is before you and I were born, but it's 1963, because it's really the pivotal point in when a lot of decisions were made outside the spectrum of economics that affected that dollar. And if you look at the fact that a dollar in 1963, the buying power is about 9 cents today. 9 cents. If you're walking around with $11 in your pocket in 1963, it's like having $122 in your pocket today. And the only thing that represents to me is the ever-changing value of a dollar. And the problem is people talk about a dollar different than they should when it comes to the velocity of money. But the stock market and different benefits to American citizens have a way to offset that. And kids need to be aware of it. You can keep the dollars if you want, but it's not going to make as much sense unless you buy something that offsets the devaluing of that dollar, often referred to as inflation, right?
Correct. This is a conversation and a lesson that has been taught in my classes as far as the true value of the dollar and what we're really talking about here. Because, when we were growing up, Shaun, it was, the old school, keep the money in the mattress and, don't put it in the banks because the old timers didn't trust it. But, over a long enough period of time and due to market fluctuation and economic activity, while you physically have $1 in the mattress, that doesn't mean that is truly what it's worth. And I think a lot of people forget about the effects of inflation, cost of living, things of that nature. And they take comfort in knowing, well, hey, I have this one, I have a physical dollar. I have $1. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it just doesn't work that way. And right now, today, there's a lot of talk about the dollar and how it's losing its value. But the reason for that is Russia and China, they're using less dollars than they used to. But I don't think there's a reason to fear the devaluation of the dollar or the failure of the dollar at this time.
No, not failure, but what I fear is this. When you devalue it, and when I say you, I'm talking about our body, our government, by borrowing more and not being honest about it. you're giving destruction that you're not notifying the people of. And that to me is a scandalous reality. And I don't like the fiat monetary system as it exists today. I don't like the fact that you're not printing money like when you and I were kids and the people aren't putting up, you're clicking it. It's made up on a screen. You don't even have to turn the machines on. You're just clicking it over. And in there, it's kind of that cannibal economy where you're guaranteeing future taxation in generations to come or in areas that may not be talked about today. But what I liked, and I argued about the tariff policy, I really did, because I'm a capitalist. I don't like tariffs any more than the next guy. But what has been exposed is shocking when you realize how different it is in foreign countries, how they view us, how they protect against us and our products and our things. And the other thing I like about tariffs is ultimately it's your choice. You pay it down the road as a choice. You don't have to pay it, right? If you could buy a tariff product or a non-tariff product. I like those ideas where you're informing the people and they make the choices. And it kind of reminds me of the way taxes were supposed to be paid, on actual economic participation rather than just earning.
Okay, well, I mean, is it, the things that you are talking about are in the effects of the tariffs and all of that. I mean, that is all political in nature. And my responsibility to you, to your listeners, is to help them see the forest through the trees, because this is something that you focus on, that you talk about. But okay, fine. The tariffs are out there. Well, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? Well, Trump keeps taking them on. He keeps taking them off. He keeps reducing them. He keeps increasing them. And the issue with that, Shaun, is that if there were a decision that were to be made and that decision was adhered to, that's fine. The markets will figure out a way to work around that.
Yes.
Because the markets don't like uncertainty. And that's the reason why the markets have behaved like they have. Now, as far as the tariffs in general, I agree with you. I believe it exposes the disconnect between our trading partners and, the benefit and non-benefit of having these trading partners and what they're paying. So what's happening right now really is a reorder of the world.
Yeah.
And these countries, they have to deal more fairly with the U.S. And the result of that is that these countries will have to really get up and get their game going and be competitive in their own markets on the world stage instead of relying on the U.S.
Yes, and you know what else I like about it, Michael, is that it gives such an avenue for American growth from outside, where you have these guys, that say, look, I'm going to open a manufacturing thing. I'm going to come there and I'm going to do it. So there is an optimistic opportunity or possibility here that you may grow.
Shaun, that's absolutely happening right now. What you're talking about is reshoring.
Yes.
And by that we mean there's consultants out there right now looking at land. There's $3 trillion that is going to be put into this to bring companies
That's
to
awesome.
actually physically build in Tennessee, in wherever. It doesn't matter. In Mississippi, it doesn't matter. But it's happening. And, we learned this really from the pandemic, that the supply chains need to, no matter what happens, keep flowing back and forth. And the pandemic exposed the disconnect in the supply chain. And it's worth it for these companies, a U.S. citizen, more money than to have a supply chain issue with someone in Taiwan or overseas where they're paying them pennies on the dollar.
Yes.
Okay? Now, whether that's right or wrong, again, that is what's happening now. And these companies recognize that they need to pay American citizens more, U.S. citizens more, to have the companies here, because from a profit and loss standpoint, and let's be honest, it's all about the dollar.
Absolutely.
It makes sense for them to do that in the long run. So that is happening, to your point.
And that could translate into growth, the likes of which this country has not seen in decades. because
Over
you're
time, yeah.
onshoring trillions of dollars, which could result into really something that could solve so many of the problems. And we just have to be like you said 2 months ago, you have to just be optimistic and sit and watch it grow and get in the game and own a piece of these companies. Because, that's the beauty of our country too. People don't realize what made us the youngest and the richest is we're the ones that enabled the ordinary citizen to keep and possess his own money and his own decisions. And how many guys grew up without the education that you were able to attain, but were able to take advantage of the base partnership that stocks or different investing did, and you could change the course of your family for eternity, can't you?
Well, Shaun, my father came from nothing.
I know.
And, you've known me for a while, and my father became one of the most successful attorneys in the city of Chicago. And he just worked hard.
Yeah.
And so I understand that. I mean, there's a great perception out there right now that things are not great, that inflation is too high. There's a lot of international and political risks, tariffs, too much government debt. But the reality is that all the market really cares about is like interest rates and economic growth. And right now, at this time, the nominal GDP is 5.5%, and the 10-year Treasury, which is at 4.5%, which is where we get our interest rate from, is fine. It's right in balance with where it needs to be. Yeah. So there's no doom and gloom. And excuse me, I want to apologize. Inflation right now is at 2.5. GDP is at 3%. So our nominal GDP is 5.5%. So I misspoke earlier. I want to make that correction.
Well, it's interesting too because I get into the policies and I don't like spending that comes back as pretend growth or pretend revenue. And it gets in the weeds and I get it, but what it does is it props up industries. And the other thing though is I'm more optimistic about the potential of the onshoring and the growth from those people that just want to take advantage of American future and growth. And I think that'll offset what I don't like. I just think you have to pull out the fraud in it. And it's going to be hard because it's tangled into the well.
I don't think it's going to be as hard as you think because these other countries are going to have to play a little more honest with us. They're going to have to show their hand, so to speak. As I said earlier, the reshoring is happening. There's $3 trillion going into it. So it's going to take time.
Love it.
As of right now, from a market, from an economic standpoint, how are things looking? I'm telling you, your listeners, it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, I love it.
And again, you do what you do on your end as far as getting into the policies and what they mean. And to a lesser extent, so do I, but I can't get caught up in that minutia. I have to parse it out, and I have to educate my students. I have to educate my clients. I have to, again, get them to see the forest through the trees.
Well, you were always the smart one. Come on, I never saw you in the social club, and if I did, you wouldn't have the future you have now. Mike Ruggiero was always on the straight and narrow, and you're lucky you did. I would have taken all your money anyway, kid. In the meantime...
Oh, please. Money never sleeps, baby. You know that.
Well, I appreciate you making time for me. Where's the best place to keep an eye on Mike Ruggiero?
You know what? My email...
I gotta watch the news, I know.
Michael, period, D as in Dan, period, Ruggiero, Ruggiero, at AMPF, AppleMichaelPeterFrank.com, or find me on the internet or call my office line, 708-226-3436.
All right, say hello to everybody for me. Thanks for making time.
All right, Shaun, you take care, buddy. I'll see you soon.
You too. We'll be back with your calls and comments.